we're essentially giving all the power to the SEC, all of our attention, all of our emotion, all of our anger at an entity within one country of 192 countries. So over the last couple of days, I've been surrounded by Bitcoin maxis. I'm here in Dubai. This is the apartment. It's all very nice. There's lots of updates to come on what Dubai is like, because I know lots of you have questions about all of that stuff, about the 0% tax, what the life was actually like here. Granted, I've only spent 2 days so far here, but I've kind of made my mind up already. But we'll get into that in another video. But I had a really interesting conversation about XRP in the car on the way to, I don't know where we're going, the Palm or something. And it was super interesting because this person, who is more on the Bitcoin maxi side of things, was just totally confused as to why XRP hasn't moved and why the community places so much of an emphasis on the America, and this decision that comes out of the court case, because it makes no sense, right? The other countries shouldn't be beholden to the SEC and the way the Americans operate, yet we focus on that with all of our attention when other countries can operate however they want, right? But we still haven't seen much happen with XRP. And so he was just frustrated with the XRP people because we place so much emphasis on America. Like we give America so much power in deciding whether our fate is going to be positive or negative. Like, think about that. Making a decision in life, and you actually don't make that decision. You don't actually go for it and do it. Usually it comes back down to an individual that you're worried about their perception of you trying to do that. Let's say you've always had this dream of making like a candle company, but the only reason you don't do it is because you're afraid of what your father will think, or what your wife or your husband would think. And that is the reason why you don't end up doing it. What you've done is given that person, even though it might be subconscious, all the power in your future. So let's use that for the SEC and XRP argument. We're essentially giving all the power to the SEC, all of our attention, all of our emotion, all of our anger at an entity within one country of 192 countries. And we're going to allow that country to be the reason we make content, we get angry, we fight against each other in the community. We're letting America take all of that for us. And I thought he had a fantastic point to make. And this is why it's really important to go into communities that aren't your community, because you can learn about all these different perspectives, and it actually added something to the way I looked at things. So here's what I think's happening, so that we can take away all the power from the SEC and America and that whole narrative of conspiracies going down that side, JP Morgan. Like, let's remove all of that, because we're giving them all the power. Meanwhile, we need a reality check on what's really happening with XRP. So let me tell you what's happening. The American market and the SEC is having no impact on the price of XRP. And if it is minuscule. The only reason why XRP is low in price is because it's not being used properly. It's not being used the way it's supposed to be used. Utility hasn't rolled out. We don't have people storing vast amounts of XRP, limiting the supply, increasing the demand, and increasing the price. We don't have that yet. We don't have institutions using on-demand liquidity, and we don't have tons of infrastructure being built on the XRP ledger to facilitate more value. It just doesn't happen. We just don't have that yet. We can't ignore this. This is the reason why the price hasn't gone up. We have to ask ourselves, why isn't utility rolled out yet? And that's a very, very simple answer. In order for any of these cryptocurrencies that are going to rise up in this flood, you know, the ISO tokens, there'll be Bitcoin and Ethereum and Solana, and there'll be a bunch of tokens that rise up with all of this. And it's because they cannot do it on their own. Like, XRP can't exist. It can't do all the money. Sure, it might be able to facilitate all the money feasibly, like possibly technologically, but it shouldn't, and it won't. Different tokens, different blockchains have different specialities, and they all fit together within the ecosystem. And now we're talking about the ecosystem. There's no interoperability, right? We have Ethereum to XDC, great. In fact, Ethereum interoperates quite well with some other blockchains, but not completely. In order for this whole ecosystem to rise, in order for XRP to do what it's supposed to do, we need the whole ecosystem to interoperate. It needs interoperability. And here's the problem with interoperability. We need regulation for the interoperability. This is one part of it. There are two. First part being the regulatory connections between countries. And remember, there's 192, depending on how you define it, countries in the world. And each country needs to make an agreement with another country. And that has to happen with every country to every country. There's so much work to be done, and none of this work has already been done at this moment. When I talked to Ricardo Correa at R3, the head of CBDCs, he said there's no global framework that has to happen. There's no global regulation framework. There might be guidance from above that's kind of like a few key elements that are global, but every country has to create its own specific agreement and requirement for this technology with one another. So India to America, India to the UK, India to Ireland, like every country to every country. Does that sound like that's going to happen quickly? It's really tough. When I talked to Ricardo Correa at R3, he told me that it would be 18 to 24 months before we start seeing pockets of utility. That like a few agreements from a few countries have come together and now they're interoperable from country to country, but not like widespread, not like the big utility event that we all hope that happens. And then secondly, we have the technical interoperability. This is how the APIs connect with each other, how the two blockchains actually talk to each other, the connections from a code level, how they actually connect. And again, this doesn't exist in mass. This happens between a few different blockchains like Ethereum and Phantom, Ethereum and XDC. This technology isn't across the whole ecosystem, right? There are gaps, there are connections between the XRP ledger and some other very random blockchain. All of these connections need to be made for all the values that come in, for payments to be processed the way they're supposed to, for the blockchain and the ecosystem to work the way it's supposed to. This is actually the problem. Not the SEC and America. We give far more attention and energy to America and their role in all of this, when that's actually not the thing we need to focus on. What we need to focus on is pushing the agenda of interoperability, doing what we can to make sure the technology gets made as quickly as possible, doing what we can to tell our governments to talk to other governments about interoperating this technology. Like, this is what we need to be doing, not focusing on every move, the Hinman emails. Like, that's just interesting, that's just drama, that's just a storyline under this big story that's happening. And there are other things we could be doing to drive the story forward without giving all of this credence and attention to something that actually has not really any effect on anything. It's one country of 192, and it's not even the real problem. Yes, when the court case ends, you're going to get Bank of America using on-demand liquidity. Sure, there might be 1,700 contracts that upon a certain thing happening in the escrow being released to institutions. Who knows, right? But that's distracting from the real problem, and that is that the technology is not even ready yet. The law isn't even ready yet from country to country. If you think about it, America is simply trying to define what the asset is. The rest of the world is trying to define something bigger. How do we interoperate? How do we link it all? This is a side quest. This is the big quest. This is the main quest. This is the campaign of the game. I've just very much enjoyed some of the conversations I've had here in Dubai. It's opened my mind to like the perspective of other communities, and there's some validity in what they say. I'm just gonna put it that way and leave it there. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like this or hear about more from my trip, I'll let you know. There's not much going on, but I'm sat down here. I'm gonna be filming the free course in just a moment here that I've been talking about. So if you want to participate, and it's absolutely free, it should take you from 0 to 100 on the scale of crypto beginners to bring you up to speed. If you want to register for that, you can click the link in the description and put your email in, and I'll email you when it's all done. Try not to give your attention to things that don't actually make an impact on your life. Stay emotionless, and I'll see you in the next one.